Hello, 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 hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Life Training Academy's live streaming, where we cover all things chaplaincy and spiritual care leadership. I'm so excited you decided to join me tonight. I want to go ahead and jump right in to our live. But if you are watching live, please go ahead and drop a comment or a question. Let me know that you're here watching. Share the live if you find that there's someone that would be interested in learning more about spiritual care and chaplaincy. So let's jump right on in. I would love to see your comments and your questions so that we can address them and welcome you on tonight. So, we're going to talk about one of the pressures that leaders tend to have as it relates to spiritual care provision and just really providing services to people in need. One of the things we tend to always want to have are answers to people's questions during times of crisis, times of uncertainty. So when people ask questions like, why did this happen to me? Or where is God in this situation? Or how do I move on from this loss or this devastation or this unexpected circumstance? We typically want to respond responsibly with an answer. But how many of you out here know that there are some moments that just will not have an answer, at least not at that time? And many times, forcing or making up or trying to kind of conjure an answer for people can do more harm than good. And so, we want to be mindful and talk about that in this live, about how chaplains, what they do when there is no answer for situations, and why presence oftentimes is the answer. And then we're going to also include in this live how chaplains work professionally and what environments specifically they work in. So if you stick around to the end of the live, you'll learn about some actual real life posted within the last couple of days jobs for chaplaincy. We want you to see that this is a real thing. And I got a feeling some of you out there are not aware that there are actual chaplaincy jobs. There are volunteer roles for chaplains, but there are actual full-time employment for chaplains. I want you to keep in mind that scripture never rushes grief. Instead, it honors it, right? And this is one of the reasons chaplaincy exists in so many environments today, environments like hospitals, hospice care, communities, corporate workplaces, disaster response teams. And these organizations don't hire chaplains because they need explanations. They hire chaplains because they need steady presence when life uncertainty happens to people and there is no explanation. So, welcome and thank you for joining. Sorry, I almost said the name. That name is Pastor Dr. Suffragan Bishop, I believe, Shander Simmons. Thank you for joining the live. So the first takeaway we want to note is not every moment is meant to be explained. Pain often asks questions that our logic just cannot resolve. And that's okay. It's okay not to always have the answer. And trying to explain a mystery too quickly can minimize the person's suffering, right? So we don't want to quickly provide an answer as if what the person is feeling in that moment does not matter, right? Grief is not a theological debate. That's not the time to debate scriptures. Trauma disrupts meaning and safety, right? Shock tends to shut down processing. So when people are going through situations that bring about shock, it will shut down the ability to process. Words spoken early can feel dismissive, right? So explanation can wait. Presence cannot. Your presence and your ministry through presence cannot wait, but your explanation, your reasoning, your answers as a spiritual care provider, that can wait. There is a scripture in Ecclesiastes 3:11, and it points out he has put eternity in their hands. But the full scripture says he has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning to end. And then Job 6:24 says, teach me and I will be silent. Chaplains are really good at presence of ministry and being silent without feeling the silence and without causing people in need, families and people that are in crisis, feeling the awkwardness of silence, right? So this is exactly why chaplains are often called into hospital rooms, hospice spaces, and crisis situations, not because they have the perfect answers. Chaplains typically don't provide answers in crisis situations, but because they know how to stand steady when answers do not exist. Just having that clergyman or just having that trained spiritual care provider sometimes is all the family needs. Sometimes it's all the individual needs, and it does far more than providing our feeble answers to people's unexplainable questions. I want to welcome Chaplain Joe Shalom to the live. Thank you for joining us tonight. Our second takeaway is going to be a scripture model for presence before answers. And I've talked about this several times before. It is one of my favorites. Some of the most powerful ministry moments in scripture contain no explanation. I don't have an answer. I don't have a reason. I don't have a story. I don't even have a testimony to give you, but what I do have is presence. An example would be Job's friends. Before they spoke in Job chapter 2, verse 13, they sat with him for 7 days in silence. I want you to just picture that. I'm really trying to picture sitting in the room or sitting outside in the yard with a group of friends for 7 days and nobody saying anything. To the average person, you would think that that's kind of insane. But actually, in this case, it's what Job needed. They had no advice, no correction, no theology, right? No one was in the room praying, no one was in the room preaching, and no one was in the room telling him what he shoulda, coulda, woulda did. It was just silence, right? This was their most faithful moment as friends to Job. There's another example that includes or involves the Jesus, who is our perfect example. And that's at Lazarus' tomb in John chapter 11, verse 35. It says, Jesus knew resurrection was coming, yet he wept. Why did Jesus weep if he knew that Lazarus was going to be raised from the dead by yours truly himself? And yet he did weep. He didn't rush the miracle. He took his time to get there, and then he didn't immediately perform the miracle. He honored the moment. He showed us how even in the midst of grief, there is a time to slow down, to stop, to pause, and to have silence, right? There's another example in Romans chapter 12, verse 15, where it talks about mourning with those who mourn. So presence communicates safety when words cannot. Sometimes we want to say the right thing. We think we're saying the right thing, and actually we're making a mess of things. And so we remove the safety that that person can feel just in our presence of silence. Okay. Now, here's the thing. This kind of presence is not passive. It doesn't mean you're sitting there because you don't know what to say, although you may not. It means that you are intentionally providing safety and presence for that person. And this requires maturity, it requires discernment, and it requires an emotional steadiness within yourself. That's why so many organizations today intentionally train and hire chaplains, because moments like this, grief, crisis, they all require not just care, but responsible care, right? Let's get to our third takeaway, and then we're going to talk about some actual opportunities in the field of chaplaincy. Now, chaplaincy trains leaders, spiritual leaders, ministers, clergies, nurses, therapists. We've had a number of people come through our chaplaincy academy, but chaplaincy trains leaders to hold uncertain space responsibly, right? Uncertain space responsibly. Anyone can arrive to the scene of devastation, crisis, and trauma, but can anyone arrive to the scene responsibly? Right, that is the key. Chaplaincy teaches what to do when answers are not available or not appropriate. Right, I shared a couple weeks ago about a gentleman that reached out to my husband and I and let us know, his older gentleman, that his wife had been sent home to hospice care. And actually, the update that I received today was that she did pass away just a few days ago. And as a communication or him venting, he was sharing really that he did not know what he was going to do. He did not know how he was going to go on. That was not the time to say, oh, you'll be all right, or oh, you'll make it, or oh, just hold on. That was the time to be quiet and to listen. Maybe a small or a brief tap on the shoulder or touch on the shoulder. And in that moment, that is pretty much it, because what could have been said was simply not appropriate at that time. And so that is how chaplains are trained and spiritual care providers. Presence over performance. That's what we want. Presence over performance. So chaplains learn to sit without filling in silence, right? So just because you're sitting and it's quiet, nobody's talking, you feel the need to fill in the spaces. Every couple seconds, every couple minutes, you want to make a statement. Well, chaplains are trained not to do that. Just sit and be quiet. Silence becomes support and not discomfort. Okay. Stillness can be ministry. Stillness can be ministry. Just knowing that you don't have to say anything. You don't, and a person that is in the midst of crisis, sometimes they're hearing so many things from different people, so many things from different entities. So they just need a moment to sit and be quiet, sit and be still, sit and just think. And just knowing that there is someone there with them is ministry enough. We also want to focus on emotional regulation, right? And again, this is how chaplaincy trains leaders to hold unanswered spaces responsibly. Emotional regulation. Chaplains remain grounded when others are overwhelmed, right? We've talked before about how chaplains know how to not absorb all of the emotions that could be in a situation or a room. And they do not protect fear. They do not project fear or urgency on others, right? And that's a challenge not to do. When you're in emotional situations, you can feel the emotions as well, and you may want to respond as well. But as a chaplain and as a spiritual care provider, you're trained not to project fear or urgency, because what the family needs or what the individual needs in that moment is calmness and steadiness, right? Calmness creates safety. Now, something else, language discipline. My goodness. Say it with me. Language discipline. As a matter of fact, type it in the chat if you will. Language discipline. I want to thank and welcome Pastor Demetrius Dew to the live. Thank you so much for joining us. Language discipline. Chaplains avoid harmless phrases. Now, I'm going to just tell you just like it is. I've done it many times. I'm not saying that I won't do it again in the future. Some things we say, it just doesn't make sense in crisis situations. Things like everything happens for a reason. That's not something that you want to say as a trained spiritual care provider when someone is going through crisis. It's true. Granted, it's true. There's a time for everything, and things do happen for a reason. But that's not what you want to say to a person that's going through crisis. Some other harmful phrases that we tend to say is, "God needed another angel." No, he didn't. No, he didn't. When someone is grieving because they lost someone, saying God needed another angel it's not only is it not true, but that is not the phrase that you want to use, right? But we do this to fill in the moments of silence because it feels uncomfortable, right? But that comes from training, being able to hold the silence responsibly without saying harmful phrases. You may not realize it in the moment that it's harmful, but it can be. Here's another phrase we tend to say. At least they're in a better place now. Well, do we really know that? We hope that they're in a better place, but do we really want to say that to an individual that is dealing with grief and crisis? So training teaches us what not to say and what to say when the time is appropriate. Now, hope without pressure. Chaplains allow hope to emerge naturally, not conjured, not forced, not made up, but they allow hope to rise naturally without forcing a resolution. It is okay to not have a resolution sometimes. There's a scripture in Proverbs 17, verse 27 that says, "Whoever restrains words has knowledge." This, my friend, is so powerful. Isaiah 50 and verse 4 says, "A word in season," right? And it says, "The sovereign Lord has given me a well instructed tongue." Woo, that is powerful. You need to put in the comments or share with somebody. Tell somebody, God has given me a well instructed tongue. I don't know who you are, what position you hold, what leadership status you have, but we need to pray that God will give us a well instructed tongue to know the word that sustains the weary. Do you know that there is a word that sustains the weary, right? He wakens me morning by morning, wakens my ear to listen like one being instructed. What a powerful, powerful scripture for every spiritual leader, for every chaplain, for every spiritual care provider, that we can have a well instructed tongue. So, so, so good. Wisdom knows when words are needed. We may not know, but wisdom knows when words are needed and when they are not. This is why we are to seek wisdom. This is why chaplains do serve in hospitals, hospice programs, crisis response teams, and even corporate environments. Stick around and we're going to get more into those environments. When people face the hardest moments in life, the presence of someone trained to care wisely becomes incredibly valued. Now, look at the situation of working with and serving individuals in crisis situations as a minister, as a clergy, as a spiritual leader, with wisdom, with discernment, but then also with training. Mix those together, and you are a force to be reckoned with. Now, I want to do something I haven't done on my lives before. I'm actually going to take you behind the scenes. As a matter of fact, let me actually show you something here, because many people assume chaplaincy is only volunteer ministry or something that you do inside of a church, but that is not the case. I'm going to share my screen with you and I'm going to show you some of the opportunities. Now, here's an example of let's go to this one. Here's an example of a hospice chaplain position. Now, let me just say this. You can go right now onto LinkedIn and look at these two positions I'm getting ready to show you. This is not fake. This is not made up. This is a real life position right now to show you and help you understand that chaplaincy is not about money per se, but chaplaincy is a professional field where it does have opportunities for employment. All right. So as you can see here, a company called Campuses is looking for someone trained in spiritual care and crisis support. Now, this position is in Virginia. It's brand new, posted 6 days ago. Only one person has clicked to apply for this position, right? It's being promoted again on LinkedIn, and here are the qualifications for the job. You're required to meet the following criteria: have a degree in ministry from a college, university, or divinity school. Or if you don't have that, have documentation of completing 1 unit of CPE with a focus in healthcare ministry. And if you don't have that, has documentation certifying completed formal training in his or her religious or belief system and is qualified to perform pastoral services. So this means if you don't have a university or college level degree and you don't have a CPE unit, then you need to have a certification, right, in chaplaincy training. Now, I want to interject here and say that every facility is going to be different. Every facility is going to be different. They're going to have different requirements. Some states are going to be different and have different requirements. Some facilities are going to have a lot of more strict requirements, and some facilities are going to be a little more lenient. So keep that in mind. There is no cookie cutter process for every single facility. Now, let's look at some of the responsibilities of a chaplain, because I also want you to see that some of these things you may already be doing. All right. This is a hospice trained individual who provides spiritual support to patients and the members of the family. This man or female may be a priest, a minister, a rabbi, or other individual with experience in spiritual support. Now, spiritual support, what does that mean? You have sat with people when they've cried through grief. You have sat with people when they needed prayer and spiritual guidance. That is spiritual support, right? This chaplain is not intended to replace the patient's own clergy. I've said it before. A chaplain is not a pastor, but a pastor can be a chaplain. A chaplain is a spiritual leader for the secular world, right? Okay, let's look at some more responsibilities. Articulates the regulatory framework governing the role of the spiritual counselor, provides spiritual care support to the patient and family, supports the involvement of community clergy as the patient family requests. They collaborate with the facility team, that's what the IDT, to coordinate spiritual care support to the patient, the family, to ensure appropriateness, continuity, and quality of care. So get this, the chaplain is a part of the care team at the facility, right? So you're not on your own, you're not by yourself. You serve the patients and their families in this setting, a hospice setting, but you're also a part of that care team. That care team can include the doctor, the on-staff nurse, a social worker, even their pastor if they have their own pastor, and yourself and anyone else that that facility deems required a part of that team. All right, so let's look at another one. This chaplain is a corporate position. Again, these positions are taken right off of LinkedIn. You can go to Indeed and you will find many, many chaplaincy positions. I want to debunk the myth that chaplaincy is not a real thing and that it is not a real job. You can literally go to LinkedIn right now and there is more than 1,000 positions posted for chaplains. So this is a very much so needed industry. Now, this company is called Zachary Enterprise Solutions, LLC. They are looking for what? A corporate chaplain. Go figure. You could be a chaplain in the corporate environment. And I want to say this, I did have a corporate job where I was able to provide chaplain services, even though I was not specifically at that time hired as their chaplain, but because they knew I had chaplaincy background, I was allowed into the corporate boardroom of president to pray for their health as they were going through a crisis treatment. And so that allowed me to even exercise as a corporate chaplain in that space. And so this one is in Texas, San Antonio, Texas. This was just posted a week ago, and only 15 people as of today clicked to apply for this position. Now, again, this one is on LinkedIn, and the qualifications are they're looking for someone with a bachelor's degree in theology, counseling, psychology, or related field or equivalent experience. Now, you will see the differences in requirements from this company to the campuses company. They are also looking for someone who is bilingual, strong interpersonal communication skills, ability to build trust across diverse populations, knowledge of confidentiality standards, continuous improvement mindset, identify, recommend, and improve current processes. So those are some of their job requirements. What will you be doing as a chaplain at Zachary Enterprise? You will provide one-on-one and group support for personal issues, which include grief, stress, illness, family challenges. Now, let me say this again. Some of you out there are already doing this. You've been doing it for years, and you've even been doing it for free. Is there something wrong with that? No, absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with providing ministry in within the context that you are called. But if you are trained and certified and educated, there are additional opportunities for you. Let me even go as far as to say for those individuals who are looking for opportunities outside of the four walls of your faith community or your church, and you feel like you're not getting the opportunities you want. If you go into the professional arena, you will be exposed to additional opportunities in addition and in collaboration with your local faith community. Let me throw that in there because some people are trying to run from their faith community, but I don't want you to do that. I just want you to understand the opportunities that are available to you. So the responsibilities at this particular company as a corporate chaplain include uh, provide advice on ethical dilemmas in alignment with company policies and code of conduct. Conduct regular on-site and virtual visits to the company, project sites, and remote locations. Promote awareness of chaplaincy services across the organization. Support the patient and family in working through stages of death, grief, and bereavement, right? So these are some of the qualifications and responsibilities that you will find at many facilities that you can be trained, you can be educated, you can be certified, since many people are already doing some of these services. So, wanted to share those with you so that you can understand that chaplains are not hired because they have all the answers. Chaplains are hired because they're trusted, because they know how to stand steady when answers are not available. I want you to drop a question if you have one. You will see a QR code at the bottom of the screen. You'll see also a website at the bottom of that screen where you can connect with myself or our chaplaincy team, and you can send in questions if you have them, and we can answer your questions. We want to assist you in moving forward in your decision to become a certified chaplain. If that has been ringing and you keep hearing this word chaplain, I want you to consider and take the next reasonable steps, which would be certification. So I want to invite you, if you've ever felt the pressure to explain pain that you couldn't fix, this still matters. This does matter for you. Chaplaincy doesn't train you to have answers. That's not what we do. We train you to be steady when answers do not exist. And that kind of presence is learned. That presence is learned. You are trained for that type of presence. And that's why we created the Life Training Academy Chaplaincy Training and Certification Program, is to help leaders serve, specifically spiritual leaders, because what I've seen is a lot of people, when you talk about chaplaincy, they don't really understand or know the framework behind it. So we want to help leaders serve people wisely in moments that matter the most, and also in a way where spiritual leaders can have longevity in their service to people, because sometimes the lack of training, the lack of knowledge will not allow you to know how to carry people's pain without absorbing all of the emotions, which can cause you to actually burn out and not be able to serve more people for a longer period of time. So this is not about learning how to say more in these times. This is just about learning how to serve wisely, getting the credentials that you desire and that you need to go into other spaces and other places to serve people, and enjoying a community of chaplains that we have been afforded and blessed to have in our lives. So, without further ado, I want you to go scan that QR code, visit the website, reach out to us, apply. That's the first step. Apply, make sure you're a good fit for this training academy, and then enroll, and you will be able to take these certification trainings on demand, on demand, on demand. You can take the trainings according to your own schedule, on your own time, and in 90 days or less, you can have the certification for chaplaincy and begin to move forward in a journey that is truly, truly, truly transformational and affords you many, many other opportunities that I just don't have time to get into, but I will get into in another live. I want you to be blessed. I hope that you enjoyed this. Thank you for joining us. Share this live with somebody. Spread the word. We are training spiritual leaders to be certified in spaces where people need them the most. God bless you and take care. Till we meet again.